The following program was provided by an independent producer solely responsible for its content. The opinions expressed do not necessarily represent the views of this station, its staff, board of directors, or underwriters.
My name is Jasmine, and I am a recovering drug addict.
My name is Richie Farrell, a.k.a. the Old White Junkie.
And we are your hosts for Exit Team Nashua.
Our mission is to bring recovery into the living room.
Last year, over 72,000 Americans died of an accidental overdose.
That's almost 200 Americans every single day.
We will bring you guests with real-life experiences with addiction and recovery. Welcome to Exit Team Nashua.
Welcome to Exit Team Nashua. My name is Jessie. We have the lovely Ashley in the studio tonight. Thanks for coming.
Yeah, thanks for inviting me.
Yeah. So I just met Ashley recently. We just started working together, and she's a case manager, the treatment center I work at, and we've got to run some groups together and stuff. But I don't know much about you. So I know you've worked at another treatment center that's in New Hampshire.
Yep.
And, you know, how long have you been in recovery? And
I've been in recovery for almost 3 years.
yeah.
I got sober September 2017.
Okay. Was that like your first shot at recovery?
No, I've been to multiple treatment centers.
Yep.
Multiple institutions. Like I've tried to get sober on my own.
Yep.
No success.
Yeah. So, you know, like, what did that look like for you? Like, you know, how long have you been using for before, like, you started to hit problems with it?
I feel like I had problems with drugs, like, right when I picked them up. I mean, I started drinking, like, as a teenager, and then I moved on to harder drugs, and just right from the beginning, it was just more. Like, I couldn't get enough of it.
So, like, you started smoking pot?
I started drinking and smoking pot, and then...
Like when you were, like, in high school, like 16?
Probably 15, 16. I didn't really like how I felt when I drank alcohol. And pot made me very paranoid, so that wasn't, like, my go-to.
It wasn't ideal.
Yeah. So I started hanging out with older kids, and I was introduced to heroin, like, right away.
Oh, wow.
Heroin and Oxycontin.
Yep.
At probably 17, 18 years old.
Okay.
And, I mean, from day one, it was just, there was no turning back.
Yeah. That's when, like, the Oxy 80s were big, right?
Yeah. I know. Nowadays, people don't even know what they are, and I feel so old, but...
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, they came around, like, right, like, when I was in high school. Yeah. We just showed our age. But.
Yeah.
So you started using in high school?
Yeah, towards the end of high school.
Yeah, so you were, like, full on addiction, like opiate addiction.
Right.
Trying to go to high school.
I dropped out my senior year.
Get your work done.
Yeah. I dropped out my senior year and went to night school because I found out, like, oh, I only needed 2 credits to graduate. So it was like, yes, I can party all the time. Barely show up.
Yeah.
Somehow I got my diploma. So.
Right. So did we said you went straight to heroin. Like, there was no, like, that time with painkillers in the beginning, really?
No.
Yeah.
I didn't know about, like, any other drugs because the people that I was associating with, that was what they were doing.
They were using. It's all about who you're around.
Yeah.
Yeah. So when you did it, before you did it, did you know what it could do to you? Like,
no, I had no idea. I didn't know that you could experience withdrawal.
Okay.
I didn't know that you could become no idea what it would do to me.
I mean, by the time I tried heroin, I did, but, like, when I got into opiates, in my experience, I had no idea that I was going to withdraw from from them.
No idea.
So how long did it take for you to figure that out?
Probably like a year of using, and then I went away on a vacation, and that was my first, like, okay, I've been gone for 2 days. Why do I feel like this?
Yeah.
And that was when I first started learning, okay, hey, you can become addicted to these.
Yeah.
Like, this is what's going on. I mean, we didn't have Google back then because cell phones weren't really a thing.
Right,
so
right.
It was like I went to a doctor and I was like, this is what's going on. They're like, oh, you're withdrawing. I'm like, that's a thing? This is like a real thing?
Right.
Yeah.
And how old were you?
Probably 19.
Wow. So what did the doctors tell you to do?
stop using drugs. There was no like referral to treatment. There really wasn't treatment centers.
They were just like, you're beat. Like,
yeah, like you can beat this now. You're young enough. Like that's all it was.
Were you honest with them about like where you were really at with your use?
No, I definitely minimized how much I was using, what I was using. Yeah.
Yeah. That's what we do.
Yeah.
So when did, was it IV use?
From the beginning it was. And only because the people that I was
That's how they were doing it. That's what they showed you.
Like, this is what you do. This is like what people do. Right.
Of course.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I went straight for IV use when I was introduced to it as well. Mm-hmm. That was my experience.
And then I tried to control it, right? So it got real bad and I was absolutely miserable. So it was like, if I stop using needles, then and just sniffing it, like it's going to get easier. It's the same. No matter how you use it, what route you take, like I still had the same misery, discontent.
Right.
And I was still addicted.
Right.
Like it didn't change that fact.
Right. And so it took over your life pretty quickly.
Very quickly.
Yeah. So, but you got your diploma.
I did get my diploma.
Yeah.
And then I think for a little while in between there was like there was an introduction to crystal meth.
Okay.
It was like big back then for a brief time.
Yeah, I remember.
Yeah, so I did that for a little bit. And then I just wasn't happy. So it was like I started chasing not only the drugs, but it was like unhealthy relationships.
Yes.
So I went from unhealthy relationship to unhealthy relationship, like thinking like that would make me happy or that would fix my problem.
Yeah. The relationships for me were actually harder to put down than the drugs. Mm-hmm. Like I remember there was a guy towards the end that like I could not say no to. Like I ended up in prison because like they, probation had told me to not associate with him and I couldn't listen, even knowing full well I was going to go to prison, and I had put the drugs down though. So I always thought that was interesting because a lot of times, because that's what kept me out there a lot of times too. And a lot of us like don't realize that. And I was so afraid to let go of that. You know what I mean? Like that was my one reservation when I went into the program was like, I'll do it, except I'm going to do what I want with men and relationships. I'm going to have the relationships I want.
Yeah. Nobody's going to tell me who I can see and who I can't see.
Right.
Yeah. I hung on to that too for a long time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I didn't even realize that like that behavior was like, and I remember people along the way trying to tell me, you're using that's keeping you sick, and me being like, okay,
I'm going to show you. I'm going to show you. Yeah. I'm the exception to the rule. Yeah.
Yeah. It's crazy. So then what happened from there?
So my drug use like took me down some like many dark roads. Like I spent a good 5-6 years of my adult life, like in and out of prison, jail, went to rehab here and there.
What was your longest like stay in jail?
I think it was like 19 months straight.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's a long time.
At the state prison.
Yeah. And like, did your family know where you were? Like,
so
who were you living with?
I didn't think this whole time, like this is like a lie that I told myself for so long that my family didn't really know the extent of what was going on.
Yep.
They knew. They knew everything. They've always known. They may have like kept their distance from me. They knew what was going on in my life.
Yeah.
And I think in the beginning they tried, to help me and point me in the right direction. And then finally, like, they just couldn't do it.
Yeah, it's too painful.
Yeah. So they just took a step back. They weren't part of my life for a few years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So were you like homeless during that time or?
Not in the like beginning stages because I would jump from relationship to relationship. So if he had an apartment or he had money or whatever, that's where I was going.
Right.
So I wouldn't let myself get to that point.
Yeah.
I did have brief periods of, I guess, what you would call sobriety, but like I wasn't.
It's just like white knuckling.
I was just not using.
Right.
Because it was like, oh, I don't want to go back to jail. And I was miserable. Absolutely miserable.
Right. Yeah, I remember those periods too. Yep. And just like doing anything, like I'm smoking like K2, like because that doesn't show up in drug tests and stuff.
Pounding energy drinks.
Yeah.
I did that. Now I don't drink them, but
oh my God, the red lines?
Yes. Yes, red line.
I remember doing that in sober living.
And I'd be
like in Portland, like at the Grace House, like downing energy drinks. Yeah, that's a pretty awful feeling. I never want to go back there of just like I need to escape myself so badly. Oh, it's such an awful place to be.
Yeah.
You know, I'm just so grateful today that like I know there's a solution. I mean, I don't always work a great program, and like who knows, you know, it's all about spiritual fitness. So like who knows how spiritually fit I'll stay if, you know, I'll keep my sobriety or not, but like to know that there's a solution that we can put it down and live differently is like a gift, you know what I mean?
I know. Once the solution was like presented to me, it was like, wow, this is crazy. Like I am like happy and content, and I like have this peace inside of me, and I'm like, I never thought that would ever happen to me in my life. Like I can be alone and I'm okay. Yeah. It's just a weird feeling.
And I like to describe it kind of like as like all the knots in my stomach being gone. You know what I mean? And like when you're in active addiction, like there is, I still get, you know, PTSD, like see a cop, you know what I mean? Like the phone will ring. I'm like, is that probation calling me to tell me to come get me? Like literally a car will pull in the driveway. And I'm like, is that probation showing up? Because I've been arrested so many times on my house. That's like trauma, you know what I mean? But like, I just, you know, get reminders just all the time.
I think the hardest thing that through my addiction, I've had 3 children.
Yeah.
So that's been the hardest because they've not only like lived through my active use, they've witnessed it. I've put them in some messed up situations.
Yeah.
And like as a result, like I ended up losing custody of my children.
Right.
And that's been like the hardest thing that I've had to go through.
It's the most painful thing.
Yeah,
you know,
because I'm hurting myself, I'm hurting them.
Yeah. Yeah, that was my most painful thing, and you know, the thing that luckily, you know, brought me to my knees. But like that's the most painful thing that I've been through is having to hurt my child. And the thing is like, I wish that I knew that there was a solution then, right?
But then I wonder, was I ready to hear it?
Well, and that's the thing. I was actually, you just reminded me that I was thinking when you were talking that. It's like, did a light bulb, like I felt like a light bulb went off for me when like I was presented with the solution, you know, and it really clicked for me. And I was like, did nobody tell me? Like, you know what I mean? Like I was like mad because like, why didn't anyone tell me this? And like literally people have been trying to tell me it for years.
Yeah.
And I just couldn't hear them. Like I like literally had like denial in my ears, you know what I mean? Like literally like cotton in my ears, just like I could not retain the information because the denial was so powerful, you know?
I just remember like the one thing that I'm like I don't miss at all. I lied so much in my use. So it was like, I remember when I got sober in treatment and it's like, you know, I'm working the steps and I get to my 4th step and it's like, write down like all this stuff, right? And it's a fact-finding mission, and it's like, I don't know if these things really happened.
Yeah.
I don't know if this is stuff I made up in my mind.
Right.
Like, I don't know what happened in my life because I don't remember or I lied so much and made stuff up that it's like, I don't even know who I am.
I was just remembering on something on the way over here, and I was like, is that a dream? Like, did that really happen? Did I really have that experience? And like, I'm pretty sure that I did, but like not being sure if something really happened. Yeah, and I'll get like memories, things will like come back to me, you know, over time. You know, it definitely takes this time. Like, and I don't remember half the stuff. That's my problem. Is like I'm on my amends, and I'm like, how am I supposed to go to these people and be like, I don't remember anything I did to you. You know, like I knowingly like harmed you by using drugs and alcohol in front of you. You know, my sponsor's like, well, you got to do it and they'll tell you if they want to tell you. But like, I don't remember any of it.
I know. And then it's really humbling when they sit there and they're just like, oh, you did all these things. And you're like, oh, I did.
Right.
Yeah.
I haven't had the experience yet. How is it?
It's terrifying, but it's actually, I don't think I've had a bad experience, like making amends.
Yeah.
They're all different and like they're not the same. And I just feel like I'm going to be making them forever because my memory too, right? I don't remember.
Yeah.
So I'll like all of a sudden be like, oh, wait, I think I owe this part, you know?
Yeah.
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 I feel like it's a lifelong thing.
And it's weird because like we've been like pushing that, like trying to forget those things.
Mm-hmm.
And now all of a sudden it's like we're forced to remember them and it's not a fun experience.
No.
It's definitely not. It's very humbling. Definitely glad I'm not that person today that's running around and, you know, hurting people. So, yeah, you work in treatment. You've been doing that for a while. Tell us about your experience working in treatment.
Well, I went to, I got sober and I went to treatment and then I followed like the suggestions. I went to extended care. I went to aftercare, sober living.
Yep.
Had a get well job. Mm-hmm. So I washed dishes at this restaurant. And it was the best experience like I ever had.
Yeah.
Loved it. And I got
So you went to treatment and then sober living.
And then sober living.
And then got a get well job. So in New Hampshire?
In New Hampshire, all in New Hampshire.
In Nashua?
In Nashua, New Hampshire. I went to sober living in Hudson.
Okay. Yes, you told me this earlier.
Yes.
Okay.
Very good experience.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so it was a strong like camaraderie in the house.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was a faith-based sober living home.
Yeah.
And it was like what I needed for me in my recovery.
Yeah. Yeah. My last guest went to the Salvation Army.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So same thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's not for everyone, right?
Right.
Recovery looks different for everyone, but for me, it was what I needed, and it just helped like strengthen me.
Yeah. So did that help you find like your relationship with your higher power?
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
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 Mm-hmm.
Did you have a relationship with God before that?
I guess I didn't even really like know. Like I know my gram would pray, and I know that everyone talked about God, and I didn't really understand what that meant. And then going through the book and learning about like agnostic, right? Like we don't know. And then finding out that like I could have a higher power, like whatever I wanted it to be. I started exploring like different options. I went to different churches. Like I looked up different stuff online. And for me, I ended up at a Christian church, and that's where I go today. And I choose to call my higher power God.
So, do you want to tell us, like, what does your relationship, you know, look like with God today?
Because of COVID-19, I've been attending a lot of church services online.
Okay.
I typically attend 2 church services a week.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, for like the fellowship, the connection.
Yeah. So have you made like friends in your church? And
and they have, through the church, Celebrate Recovery. I don't know.
Yeah, I've heard of it. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's the 12 steps through like using the Bible and God. So I've met people there. Yeah.
That's awesome. And you know, do you like for me in my relationship, like what I've been able to like describe is right now, all I'm capable of is like asking for help in the morning and like saying thank you at night, you know, and like I try to connect like throughout the day. Are you able to like connect with him a lot? Like
sometimes, but sometimes it's hard, right? Like it's not perfect. Like I always strive to have a stronger relationship with God, but sometimes I get in my own way, or life gets in the way. Yeah.
You know, and I feel like disconnected sometimes, but like what I tell other people is like, you just keep doing it, right? It's just a practice in it, and like, and it will flow, it'll come and go, you know, but like it's the practicing it every day that it'll definitely be there, like when we need it the most.
I think, fun fact about myself, that you probably don't know. So my favorite type of music now to listen to is worship music.
Yeah?
Yeah, so that's typically what I listen to driving on my hour drive to work, on my hour drive home.
Okay, well, I actually like Christian music. I go to church too, and I'm like friendly with like the pastor and his wife, and you know, a bunch of people that are in recovery go to the church, and so I have experience, you know, with church, and they play music like It's not like a church with like a steeple and stuff. It's like you go in there and it's like looks like kind of like a stage,
live band.
Yeah, live band, and they have like big screens with the words. It's really cool. It's awesome. And I know a lot of people that listen to Christian music all the time, and they say that like it gets them through.
That's like what helps center me and like ground me.
Yeah,
and like listening to it on the way to work helps get me like focused for the day.
Yeah.
Working in treatment, I mean, the days are stressful.
Yeah.
People in early recovery. So like to stay grounded, that's one of the things I use.
So that's what you do on your way in. So that's why you're so zen when you get to work.
I don't think anyone's ever described me as zen. Thanks.
Yeah. So awesome. So do you do meetings?
Since COVID-19 hit, my meeting attendance has been a little sparse, to be honest. Yeah. Meetings online are very hard. I have a hard time concentrating. Mm-hmm. So I've struggled with meeting attendance.
Yeah.
So I've been leaning more on church.
Okay.
Prior to COVID, I would say I regularly attended like one meeting a week, my home group. Beyond that, my attendance at meetings is if I'm asked to go to a meeting, go with a sponsee.
Okay. So do you work with sponsees?
I do. I have sponsees.
Okay. Yes. How many?
Right now I only have 2. So I was finding myself, the more sponsees you get, the less self-care I have for myself.
Yeah.
So sometimes it's exhausting.
Yeah.
When you have too many, I'm spread too thin.
Yeah, of course.
So, and I just don't feel like I'm being...
I feel like 2 is a good number.
2 is three.
2 or 3, yeah.
3 is like attainable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And do you meet with them all weekly?
Over the phone, it depends.
Yeah.
It depends what's going on.
Right.
Regularly, I would say.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. That's got to be like, I mean, that's a huge part of it. Working with other women, doing service. That's, where we keep doing the work. You keep going through the work yourself when you're working with sponsees. I haven't worked with sponsees yet, so this is what I hear.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know, like, when I first went to treatment, it was, I don't like women. Yep. I'm not going to be friends with women.
Yep.
I don't know the reason, right? Maybe intimidation, maybe
jealousy. They're prettier than me. Right. Like competition.
And now today, my strongest friendships are women.
Yeah.
And they're the women I met, most of them in treatment or in sober living.
Yeah.
Or the women that I sponsor, like in recovery.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that's like where I've found my best friends as well. Mm-hmm. So not a lot of meetings. I'm with you on that one. Mm-hmm. Meetings are hard to, I mean, especially with COVID, before COVID I was doing, I want to say like a minimum of 2 a week. But you do church. I do yoga, like hot yoga and hot Pilates, like twice a week, 2-3 times a week when I can get to it. But it's hard, go to work all day and then, go to a meeting or, go to church at night and then you get home and, you don't have time for much.
Yeah. And everybody's recovery program looks different, right? Some people go to 5 to 7 meetings a week. Some people and that's the good thing about recovery is everyone can have their own personalized recovery program.
Yeah.
Sometimes when things are getting a little tough in my life, obviously not every day is a good day just because I'm sober. Life happens, right?
Yep.
My meeting attendance does kick up. Like I know what to do now.
Yeah.
So, when there's some pain in my life, you'll see me more at meetings. You'll see me more.
Right.
Maybe I should be going other times to more meetings, but that's just what my program looks like today. Yeah,
that's awesome. And that's really good too to like realize that like you can take what you need and when you need it. A lot of us get into recovery and it's like, I'm going to do this, because that's all I know. They tell me this and this is what they tell me to do and that's what I know works. But it's good when you've gotten to a spot in your own life when you know what works well for you, and that's definitely been trial and error for me.
Oh, me too. Yeah. Made a lot of mistakes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I just realized that like I have to make the choices that I don't want to make. You know, like to be a good person, I have to like do good things. You know, like you just don't like find self-love and self-acceptance like when you're like doing bad things every day.
Right.
You know, like I was talking to the clients today about like, you know, what's self-love and self-forgiveness and self-acceptance. And it's like putting the actions behind it. You know, if you're making good choices every day and doing good things, you're going to come to a spot with yourself when you're going to learn how to love yourself, you know?
Yeah. And I feel like it's going to be a lifelong process.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because some days are great days. Some days I'm just like, ugh, but that's like life.
Yeah.
You know?
Definitely. So. Yeah. So, I mean, is there anything else you want to tell us like about your story or, you know, your experience?
I would just say that, so recovery isn't easy. It's hard and every day is different and you just got to keep like pushing forward. 3 years ago, I was still in active use. I'm almost 3 years sober. I hadn't seen my children. I hadn't seen my family. Like I was just utterly hopeless. Like this is it. I've lost my kids. I've lost my family. Nobody would talk to me. I was homeless, living on the streets. And I've completely turned my life around.
Right.
It's possible for anybody. There's treatment, there's services for everyone, whether you have money or you don't have money. There is avenues that everybody can take. And I think just not giving up is like really important. It's so worth it to be sober. And like I said, like I have bad days, but it's so worth it to go through them sober and clear-minded.
Yeah, 100%. Grateful today that I can feel some of those emotions even when they're rough. You know, that's when I remind myself in those painful moments is like, you know, there's no like flowers without rain, right? Like if you have those sad emotions, serve a purpose so you can have those happy ones.
Yeah, and I have my family back in my life today, you know, my children to some capacity, and I never thought this would happen.
Yeah.
And it's amazing.
Yeah. So you have your children back in your life?
I see my kids, 2 of my children.
Yeah.
I have visitation with them.
Yeah.
And I never thought that was possible.
Exactly.
You know, and it was just me. I just kept doing the next right thing. And like slowly, like the judge was like, oh, wow. Right. You know, and just was giving me more and more like privileges with my children. And I'm so grateful.
Right.
So grateful for everything that I have today.
Well, that's amazing. And you're a power of example. Thank you for coming on.
Thanks for inviting me.
Yeah. And thanks everyone for watching. And we will see you next time.
The preceding program was provided by an independent producer solely responsible for its content. The opinions expressed do not necessarily represent the views of this station, its staff, board of directors, or underwriters.